provide quality education for their children, but too many don't. And too many children in the nation just don't have access to other options, and they're assigned to schools that are very low performing. For that reason, as I said, we primarily focus on large urban areas with our funding. The Foundation's education focus is primarily dedicated to the district reform piece, the charter school work, and then also K through 12 scholarships for low-income families. I primarily work in the charter school area, and in 10 years we've made grants of $200,000 to $300,000 to over 700 public charter schools in the country. We also invest in state charter school associations such as the Missouri Association, and we invest in large national organizations that are primarily trying to affect the quality and the quantity of high-performing charter schools in these metro areas. The direct impact we're trying to have on the quality piece is really multifaceted. We only invest in public charter schools that we believe will demonstrate in a short order of time significant increases in learning, as evidenced by standardized assessments. And we also then invest in state associations that really can have an impact on the quality of the pipeline, as Aaron was saying, of the new schools coming in. We also we've made grants to the National Association of Charter School Authorizers for their work to improve the quality of the sponsorship and the authorization around the country. There are too many authorizers in the country that are simply authorizing schools and not holding them accountable, and not adopting some of the best practices we've seen at SUNY or the Institute or some of the other locations around the country, including in Chicago and many other places. Our work here in Missouri will be to help affect some of the change through the state association. We're trying to invest in high-quality schools, primarily here in St. Louis, and we'll also be working with NACSA across the state.
Thank you very much, and thanks you all for coming. Doug, you don't get quite as big a thank you because you live here, but everybody else came from out of town, so I'm so glad you're here. Just real quick, one note. If you hear the words authorizing, authorizer, and sponsor, for all intents and purposes, those are interchangeable words. It kind of depends on how it's defined by your state law. Authorizing has some other powers, but for the most part, we're talking about accountability agents. And I wanted to start with some more fun questions, but I think we're going to move right into accountability because, at least in my discussions on the charter school model and talking with other schools, and also, frankly, my own analysis of kind of where we've fallen down in Missouri a little bit is on the accountability edge. It's basically charter schools they're public schools, they're free and open to all students, and they're accountable to a sponsor for some specific results. They have an independent board that can make decisions in the best interest of that school. In exchange for that freedom to operate and employ programs and people that they feel will best serve their students, they agree to be held accountable for some very specific things to their sponsor. And that's where that's where the primary accountability comes in. They're also accountable to DESE for several things as well. So I think what I'd like to start with is maybe Sherry, you could talk a little bit about, as a charter school leader, how are you accountable to your sponsor? And then we could find out from the others how accountability works at that sponsor level.
I don't know do I need to use the microphone or can you hear me? Okay. We are sponsored, as I said earlier, by the University of Missouri at Kansas City, which I don't have a lot of experience with other sponsors, but I believe that UMKC does an excellent job of sponsorship. They hold us very, very accountable, and as Aaron said, we're held accountable by our board, by our sponsor, by DESE, by our parents, by our students, by our community. So as a charter school, we have very high degree of accountability to multiple audiences. The sponsor holds us accountable in several ways. First of all, UMKC does conduct biennial evaluations. So we go through a very rigorous evaluation process. And coming from a traditional public school setting, I would say it's equivalent to an MSIP review. A team comes in from the University of Missouri to evaluate us on everything from classroom practices to academic achievement. They bring a finance person to review our financial systems. They